Hello gang, it is May the 3rd, 2025, and that means this road to the show journey is 4 weeks out from the Alberta Open, where I'll be competing in the Masters Mens Physique contest divisions. And for those of you who've been following the road to the journey, thank you so much. Today's going to be a bit of a different one, to be honest with you. It is 1:58. I don't know if you can read that, almost 2 o'clock in the morning. And I figured, hey, I can't sleep, so what a better time to be making a video. Like I said, this one's going to be a little bit different because I know when you watch, I've watched a lot of these before, road to the show countdowns and things like that. Most men and women talk about, their training, their nutrition, the contests, the competitors, what have you. But what a lot of people don't seem to touch on, not that I've seen anyways, is the mental aspect of this. And for the life of me, I know I had a great conversation this evening with Coach Antella, and I still don't have an answer to this. So if you guys have an answer to this question, I implore you to put it in the comments and help me understand. Because when it comes down to the final push, where we're less than a month out, and it doesn't even have to come down to that. It boils down to it's not a matter of physical anymore. It's just a mental thing, a resilience thing. And it's like, how the hell am I gonna get through this? And most importantly, why am I doing this? And I tried to say to myself, that's a great question. Why am I doing this? And I still don't quite comprehend why that is. Because I know I look at, certain men and women who are involved in extreme sports and do crazy shit like climb mountains and do ultra marathons and even just regular marathons. And when you see them, or if you've done them before, I don't know about you, but that shit does not look fun. It does not look appealing to me. And I look at that, it just looks like some medieval torture device that you should be wishing on your worst enemy. But yet, people still do it. And what is it that motivates them to do it? Yeah, we all seem to have this, I call it like a genetic set point. And what I mean by that is, like, if you were to just live life day to day, doing what you're doing, whether it be working out, whether it be lounging on the couch and just, getting by with your daily routine, your body and your mind are likely always in a frame of reasonableness for you. And when you start to do extreme shit, you are certainly pushing the envelope of reasonableness to a degree that you have never imagined. And if you've competed before or you are considering competing before, there are so many aspects of this that are so completely underrated, overlooked, and not considered that I think, it's worthy of addressing and talking about, because, like I said, it comes down to resilience. I honestly, recently, have contemplated quitting. And I'll tell you why. You are pushing your body to a degree that you've never pushed it before. Your level of physical exhaustion is off the charts. It takes effort to do basic daily routines now. Like, I'm just talking about basic stuff. It's like your body goes into this energy preservation mode after a while, where it just wants to conserve as many resources as possible because your stress levels are like through the roof. And what that does is it almost causes everything, well, for me anyways, to feel very overwhelming, like sensory overload, because your body's just trying to minimize output, conserve energy, and not be overly stressed out about the situation that you're creating. And back to that genetic set point. So say, for example, you're one of these guys that doesn't do too much, or one of these ladies, and you walk around all day with six-pack abs, and you can kind of eat whatever you want. Yeah, you know who you are, you bastards. That's their genetic set point. But for most of us, to get to the level of conditioning that is required for competition and the level of physicality that's required, it requires a certain amount of sacrifice that goes beyond reason. It is such a selfish thing on how much of you that it devotes and how much it impacts those nearest to you. Because you've got to remember, they're, in many cases, I know my wife, Coach Antella, she didn't ask to be put in this situation that I've created for myself. She's been absolutely fantastic, 100%. And if I didn't have her love and support and assistance on this, there's no friggin' way that I think that I would be able to do it. When you think about how much time and effort is required to pull this off, it's, and especially if you have a full-time job, you have other life responsibilities, work, kids, day-to-day stuff. And then on top of it, you're adding cardiovascular training once or twice a day, meal prep, 5, 6, however many meals, consuming that many meals, taking your supplements, your regular workouts once, some of us twice a day. Like, it becomes a full-time job. And that's on top of what you're required to be doing anyways in life, like with work and the kids and all the stresses that come along with it. And now you're compounding that with this extra stuff. And what is it that we get from this? Is it just who we are? Is it just part of something that moves us to a different level? Because I know when I see these people climbing mountains and stuff like that, I don't want to have anything to do with that shit. And they probably look at bodybuilding and fitness maybe in the same way, and they're thinking, I don't want to do with that shit. But what is it that we're getting out of that? Is the reward greater than the demand? I don't know. And lately I've been really asking myself that question. It's because you feel very fragile. You feel very overwhelmed. You feel a certain amount of self-pressure to be your best. And I'm not even like a competitive individual. I am with myself, but I'm not going in it to beat 30 other guys in my class, or 3 other guys for that matter. I'm just doing this for me. And for the life of me, I'm asking myself lately, what the hell am I doing? Like, you're depriving yourself, you're pushing the envelope, you're going without sleep, you feel fragile and weak, your energy levels are low. And for me, as you can see, it's after 2 o'clock in the morning. Here I am because I can't sleep, because my calories are so damn low. So what do you do to compensate for low energy? You take stimulants. Of course you do. You take a Monster energy drink. You take an extra coffee in the morning, or 2 or 3 or 5, and then before you know it, you're up to like 2,000 milligrams of caffeine, and you're wondering why you can't sleep. Well, I wonder why. You've just overloaded yourself with, like the Nespresso God here. I know you can see it over here. The thing is like on permanent mode almost. So I've had to like really kind of reel that back and say, okay, time to switch to decaf now, because it's just way too much caffeine I've got coming in. And you're doing it, you think you're doing it, because you need that energy, that boost, because you're just so friggin' wiped that, hey, maybe this extra caffeine will help. But what it's doing is just sabotaging you anyways, because now you're not going to get the rest, recovery, and sleep that you need. And as a result of that, guess what? You're tired. So when you're tired and you're hungry and you're pushing the envelope of extremism to the degree that you need to, or I need to anyways. I'm not waking up with abs on a good day. I'm fighting like a demon just to see an etching of a shadow of an outline of abs. It's that challenging for me. My genetic code wants me and hopes that I'll be a fat guy again. And aside from the one massive slip up that I had where I had Uber Eats guys passing each other in the driveway, and I jumped on about 12,000 calories of food because I was losing my shit, I've been strict all along. And this is the hardest contest prep I've ever done. And don't think for a second that it doesn't impact those people around you, because it does. You're a different version of yourself. You're acting differently. I am anyways. Behaving differently. Your tolerance levels are different. Your level of patience is like diminished. And like I said, you're really conserving those energy resources in order to just kind of survive through the day. And I told my wife this morning, I just said, I just don't know if it's worth it. We're like 4 weeks out and I feel like I'm really suffering. And I know, we go over to the dog park, take the dogs, and people that we know from there, know that I'm competing in this contest. And, some of them will often comment, well, how's it going? And it's like, you have no idea. I can't even begin to summarize how challenging this is. Most people think, oh yeah, you're going on a diet and you're working out hard, you're looking great, and that's all there is to it, right? That's not all there is to it. This boils down to such a mental commitment in understanding what is driving this sense of purpose, to put yourself through this level of suffering and discontent. My wife said to me, you are not quitting at this point. Even though she knows that I'm like the most challenging individual right now to get along with. And thank God we booked a holiday a week after the show to kind of reset and reconnect and, get back to the old self, and not Daryl the fat guy, but, Daryl the guy that's eating reasonably well most of the time and not feeling like you've got a loaded gun to your head and you're doing something that's like painfully restrictive, because again it questions what is your intention behind this. People are doing this and you often hear them say, oh, those last little bit you're gonna suffer, like for your body to get down into like single digit body fat levels is a level of endurance and suffering that's required. Like, yeah, you're right. For most people, it is. So help me understand, why do we do this? We know it's gonna suck. Like, I guess when you come out the back end of it, and this is the only thing I can think of, it's almost like an identity. fitness and competing at a certain level, and, these guys climbing mountains and shit like that. It's just part of their identity. It's part of their personality type. It's part of who they are. And they may not understand why they do it. And there's got to be times when you know that they're standing on the top of Mount whatever and it's minus 6,000 and they've got icicles in their beard and they're thinking, this is a lot of fun. No, it's not a lot of fun. Being done that shit is a lot of fun because you're no longer doing it anymore. It's like, stop kicking me in the balls because it feels great afterwards. No, the kicking in the balls part is really shit. Do you need to do that in order to feel better afterwards? I don't think so. But yet, we still do it. We still come back to it. We still a million of us that say, yeah, let's do another show. It's like, did we forget how much this sucks? My good friend Tony, who I've been communicating back and forth with, he's compete like 50 some odd times. The guy's 60 years old, looks better than most guys a third of his age. And, he's been helping me kind of manage the mental aspect of this as well, because it's not something that you prepare for, not something that you go into thinking, oh, geez, the only thing I can equate it to is, if you ever felt hormonal, and I know women, you probably felt this way once or twice before in your life, you know what's motivating it. You know what the cause of it is. You know why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. But then you add the hormonal aspect. And then you add the physical aspect. And then you add the self-implied pressure internally and externally by others who know that you're doing it. So you obviously want to be your best. They're coming out to support you. So you obviously, and most importantly, you don't want to let yourself down either. But you also don't want to let people down that are kind of supporting your journey, and so show up looking like a sack of smashed assholes. You want to look like you belong in these shows. So it's, then you have that aspect of it. And then you have the potentially no sleep or compromised sleep. You have the physical exertion that goes into it. Then you have all those other aspects that we talked about, the time that's required, the money that's required. Good God, it's so expensive when you add it all up, the food and the supplements and the shows and the registration and the tanning and, not to mention the ladies with the outfits and the hair and the nails and the makeup and the hotel and the registration fees and the photographer. And, it's like, you gotta be sitting on a small little fortune in order to effectively do this, because who's gonna cut corners? You're not gonna cut corners. You want to be your best. You gotta be expected to open up your wallet here. This is gonna cost you some bucks, pal. Sign up for the ride. Thankfully, I've got some great sponsors on board that help out tremendously, but still, it's not an easy thing. Hey, you show them some love as well. You can click on their links, ANS Performance, 20% off everything they've got. Phenomenal product line. Links in the bio. So I'm probably going to wrap this one up soon. And no, I'm not going to quit. I kind of want to. I kind of question myself. But then, you got the devil on one side and you got the angel on the other. And you're saying to yourself, well, how would you feel if you quit? You'd feel like shit. And how would you feel if you continued? You'd also feel like shit. So either way, knowing at 4 weeks out or however many weeks out, you're likely going to be feeling like shit. And, judging, your appearance even changes. Like, you have people thinking that you have some sort of malady. The poor guy, there must be something wrong with him. The color of his skin. Who was this guy? His face is all sunken in and stuff. it goes on and on and on and on. Be prepared to tackle the psychology of it. That period of time, and you know you will get there, where you feel like throwing in the towel, where you feel like, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of it? Is it worth it at the end of the day? How would I feel about myself if I didn't do well? How would I feel about myself if I didn't do it at all? These are all questions to ask yourself before you even begin to contemplate the journey, in knowing that that's going to happen to your thought process at some point along the way. And for me, that's happening right about now, because you're seeing the impact that it's having on people that you love. Like I said, that their whole lifestyle is getting thrown upside down too. Like we used to have regular, kind of routine things, or you go out for dinner once a week and, what have you. And all that stuff kind of goes to shit. You're not doing the same things that you typically would together because, your social is compromised because you can't be too far away from your bucket of food, or your gallon of water or whatever it is. It's really all encompassing to a degree that unless you have done it, words can't even express just. And again, I'm just speaking from myself, and I've heard other people speak in these same terms as well, but again, they don't really get into the mental aspect of it all. It's like, oh, they're working out, we're watching their training, we're looking at their shitty chicken and rice meals, and oh well, right? But when you don't delve into the mental, what's going on in the gray matter there's a lot of shit going on, and you're feeling fragile and overworked. And I am going to buckle up. I am going to not allow myself to overthink the process at this point and just follow the plan. Not much has changed as far as the plan goes from last week to this week going forward. It's going to change probably a couple weeks out. Things will probably, I'll lose my beloved condiments. I'm a big fan of this one now. Flavor Gang's Sweet Poppy Sauce. I've got to give you a sauce review when I'm getting close to done. I've got about 30 different sauces on the go, like no word of a lie. I've got the Red Rooster, we all love this one. I've got the hot mustard, hot and honey. I've got black truffle hot sauce. This stuff I didn't put this here. It sits on my counter literally all day long in wait for the next meal because it's just too much effort to walk to the fridge or the pantry to get the shit out. So I have it all within arm's reach. I didn't set this up at all. This was just there. Flavor Gang Ghost Seasoning. I've got my Redmond's Real Salt, the batch version with, here's my teaspoon, quarter teaspoon every meal. I've got the Redmond's individual packages. I called the company, send me 2,000 of them. Who's the idiot here? Like I said, I've got so many hot sauces and seasonings. And to me, that is the kid in the candy store now when I get to try a new flavor on my rice or a new flavor on my chicken, a new level of heat that I've never been to before. That's where we're at, folks. Thanks for following the journey. I'll let you know where we're at in another week, which will get us at 3 weeks to go. And for God's sakes, I hope that I'm still here and the towel has not been thrown in, because at this point, we've got to get this shit done. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.